Again, I want to thank you for being with me today. Today I'm going to go over some material from a book that was written by the great, late Dr. Frank Richelieu. He was the founder of a magnificent ministry in Redondo Beach, California. And the title of this book is The Art of Being Yourself, and it's subtitled Discover Who You Are and Learn How to Live. And for many of us, we don't discover who we are for whatever reason, and it's kind of important that we learn to do that, that we learn to think about who we are and what we're all about. And I go to his page 64, where he writes, "Within you is the power to be yourself. Jesus dared to live his own life, to be himself. He kept contact with his source. He did not try to copy anyone else. He was not here to imitate. He was here to take leadership in life. He was showing by example that each of us is unique and endowed with the creative power of life to express our uniqueness as long as we keep a conscious contact with our source intact." And the most important words here is that we're all endowed with the creative power of life. You know, life is a multitude of things, and we're all infinitely individualizations of the one life that people call God, for lack of a better reason. Whether we call it God, our source, or life, we're all part of life. You know, we read in the scripture, "In him we live and move and have our being." That him, in those days, everything was referred to that was powerful in the masculine. That him is life. It's life. We are in life, and life is in us. And then we go and look at page 58, and this is a very important lesson he gives us. Forgiveness heals. He says we must learn to forgive others. We must learn to forgive situations and conditions, but most of all, we must learn to forgive ourselves. A lack of forgiveness builds up tremendous pressure within ourselves. If you want to experience better health, sit down and say, what do I have to forgive? What needs forgiveness in my life? On the surface, you may not be aware of anything that you need to forgive. But if you will sit quietly and think about it, you will become aware of a little grudge here and a little misunderstanding there and a little disagreement somewhere else. You will find that you have not washed them completely out of your system, that like the little grain of sand in the oyster shell, they are still irritating you just a little. Most of all, ask yourself in what ways you have not forgiven yourself. Maybe you can forgive others, but you continue to blame yourself in many areas. Forgive yourself of your mistakes, seeming shortcomings, and apparent inadequacies, and start with a fresh mental attitude. To forgive means to gain a new sense of peace. To forgive means to replace the old with something new. To forgive means to give up, all in harmony. To forgive means to forget that someone has hurt you or been unkind or inconsiderate. Forgiving and forgetting go hand in hand, and you cannot accomplish the forgiveness as long as you are not willing to forget. So perhaps you say to yourself, I don't have anything to forgive. I am not holding anything against anyone. And this may be true. But if you have any inharmony in your body, if you have any consciousness of unrest, or if things just do not have the zest for you that they should, it pays to sit down and think, why do I feel the way I feel? Could it be caused from a lack of forgiveness? Ask your subconscious mind. What needs forgiveness in my consciousness? What needs to be forgiven? What has happened in my life up to the present day that needs to be healed? What is it that I have not been able to release? What has happened to me? Even though I may have forgotten what it was, what makes me feel bitter? Forgiveness is a giving up of one thing so another better thing can come into our life. It is a very freeing process. It leaves us with a clean mental and emotional slate to start fresh. And new. Think about what it is that's offended us. You know, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. And sometimes we're so hard on other people. We expect other people to be something that they may not even be capable of being. You know, we all have expectations. But when we make our expectations so ironclad and expect people to live up to our expectations, we better be very careful about what those expectations are. You know, once in a while, it never hurts to sit down. It's definitely, Dr. Bristol was telling us, definitely, to sit down and think about what it is. Because it may be something that happened at work, it may be something that happened when you were a child, it may have been something in the first marriage, or second marriage, or a fifth marriage, or something in a relationship. There may be something that a husband or wife has done to a child or a neighbor, or something that you have done to yourself. Whatever it might be, great progress will take place when you sit down and say, whatever needs forgiveness in my consciousness, I forgive. I drag no burdens of unforgiveness around with me. I travel light and free. I need all of myself clear and unburdened to put into the present living of my life. I free my consciousness of any weights of unforgiveness which have held me back. So think about this. He's given us some very important information here. Forgiveness is not forgiving someone, holding grudges, feeling that you've been abused or offended, can make for things that are bitter. He tells us the body does not make itself ill. Our affairs do not go away of their own accord. Our happiness is not manufactured from the outside. That which goes forth from us is that which returns to us in many subtle ways, ways so subtle that we do not always recognize their origin. Yet we work diligently to correct things from the outside before looking within to our own consciousness. How can we forgive everything without thinking about forgiveness? How can we forgive everything without opening ourselves up to being willing to see that maybe we were expecting too much? One little grudge, one little irritation, one little hurt feeling may not impede your progress, but a gradual build-up will. I cannot take the whole telephone book and tear it in half, but if I took a page at a time, I could eventually have the book torn in half. The same is true with all the little things that we harbor in our consciousness. They build up until they accomplish just what we do not want to experience in our lives. This is why it's important at times to ask yourself, how forgiving and how understanding am I? How loving am I? Individuals who are so sensitive that they carry their feelings on their sleeves are not individuals who are loving. Our sensitivity should be of a different nature. We should be sensitive to things of the spirit and not to the hurts we collect. We have to work with our own consciousness. We're not responsible for the consciousness or the acts of other people. No matter how justified we may feel to hold grudges or be unforgiving, there is no justification strong enough for us to let unforgiveness affect our life adversely. So I'm telling you folks, it makes us sick. It makes us sick. So hold on to no one. Hold on to nothing. Hold nothing against anyone in any way, shape, or form. This does not mean that you have to get cozy with all people. No, the important thing is that you do not hold anything against them in your consciousness. And when we hold anything against anyone in our consciousness, then we are holding ourselves back. Because it is our own mind which is filled with the pollution of anger, blame, and negation. So many times when people go through terrible situations, especially people that are aware of this philosophy, they blame themselves. Blame is just another way of unforgiving, of not forgiving ourselves. Blaming ourselves doesn't solve anything. Blaming ourselves doesn't get us to that point of correction that makes things better in our lives. We don't blame anyone. We don't want to shame anyone. We definitely don't want to blame or shame that person that we see in the mirror. Dr. Risley tells us true forgiveness is the greatest healing power that ever existed. Quickly, some will say, I thought love was the greatest healing power in the universe. We cannot forgive without loving. The letting go and the loving follow hand in hand. If you love, you are not holding grudges. If you forgive, you love, and you are not holding grudges. I'm not speaking of love and forgiveness as big emotional upheavals, but as deep understanding and a willingness to go along with life. With this understanding comes a realization that our hurts and grudges are petty compared to what love and forgiveness can do. Don't forgive to make someone else feel better. Do it to right your own life. Do it to right your own life, to free your own consciousness. Any dis-ease will bear inspection in terms of the need to forgive. There is nothing humiliating in forgiving and forgetting. Yet some people feel that they lose faith if they forgive. They do not lose anything except those things which have been detrimental, those things which have been weighing them down, those things which have been impeding their progress. Healing in any area of our life cannot help but take place when we become truly forgiving and truly loving. So if everything is not 100% perfect in your life today, try forgiving. You will like the results. You will like the results. Try forgiving. How can we get out of the moody cycles of depression, exhaustion, and physical illness? A lot of that has to do with forgiveness. I believe we can do it by realizing that the consciousness within us is capable of supporting us in our decision-making. It can set the energy flowing again. We can depend on the life within us to keep circulating through us. Our part is to keep on center and decide to decide. When we feel exhausted, we need to look within ourselves and determine if we are dragging excess baggage about with us because we hesitate to make clear-cut decisions about our lives. Of course, some decisions are more important than others, but through inner guidance, we can make even the most important ones without taking an excessive amount of time to do so. Objectively, we could never finish weighing the pros and cons, but subjectively, we can know what is better and what to decide. Some people say, I don't feel good in a cloudy weather. When they do that, what they're really saying is, weather, you have control over me. You have power over me. Sun, you are the one that makes me happy. Clouds, you have power over me. You make me sad. If we let the weather or anything else on the outside determine our moods and our feelings and our reactions, we are giving power to something outside of ourselves. We need to know that our energy is inexhaustible, that no one and nothing can take our energy from us. When we give power to things outside ourselves, we are off-center. So the first and most important decision to make is to get back on center and look at the world from that perspective. For example, as long as we pay our electric bills, plug in an appliance and turn on the switch, we have electricity flowing. The moment we turn off the switch and unplug the cord from the socket, the electricity stops flowing. But the electrical potential is still there, though we are not meeting the conditions required for the use of it. The same is true when we maintain our connection with the center of our being. As long as we do not turn off the switch, we have the current of life flowing through us freely, but if we let anything interfere with our contact, then we begin to experience lack in some form through the power of life, though the power of life has not been diminished. As long as we do not turn off the switch, we have the current of life flowing through us freely, but if we let anything interfere with our contact, then we begin to experience lack in some form, though the power of life has not been diminished. So this is easy to remind ourselves. If we don't go within, we go without. And where do we go within? We go within recognizing there's a power within us. There is a power within me. Mystics have called it different things. The Mastermind Jesus said it's the kingdom of God within us. Dr. Joseph Murphy wrote an entire book about the subconscious mind. Everybody who's tapped into that spiritual guidance and understanding has realized that there is more. Believe me, no matter what you may be lacking today, the power is still available. So make your connection to it. Tune in. Go within. When you do so, this power will flow through you. If you need wisdom to make certain decisions, it will come to you. You will certainly know, and you will act with confidence. Perhaps you feel that the pendulum has swung so far in one direction that there is no hope. But remember, a pendulum is free to move back and forth. It is not fixed in one spot. Decide then that you will swing the pendulum to the other extreme and know the fullness of joy, the richness of life, and the power to act. The power to act. Many of our problems are just old habit patterns to which we are responding. The feeling of emptiness can become a habit. Ask in depression. Ask in depression. Ask in giving power to the outer world and to other people. We are the ones that must tap into this power within us. No one else can do it. No one else has the power, because no one else can think for us. Think about these words from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Every great and commanding moment in the annals of the world is a triumph of enthusiasm. And Henry Ford said that enthusiasm is the yeast that makes your hopes rise to the stars. Isn't that wonderful? A wonderful word. But we must see that for ourselves. We must stir up that spirit within us. Get rid of all the old stuff. Clear ourselves, clear it all out of our consciousness. Allow ourselves to feel joy, to feel free, to feel the energy of life. We are only true to ourselves when we acknowledge that power, that spirit, that intelligence within us is infinite, that life is ongoing, and that the soul is indestructible. We are only true to ourselves when we know that we have a great contribution to make to life, and that life created us to succeed, to advance in consciousness, and to express in our own time-space world with abandonment to the divine will within us. We are not true to ourselves when we let the world crowd upon us and pressure and weigh us down with its contrary appearances. If the spirit within is pushing forth through us, no pressure on the outside can withstand it. It knows no time, space, nor obstacle. It proceeds joyously and lovingly on its way, creating worlds before it and leaving worlds behind it. This does not mean that we will not meet with all varieties of experience, nor does it mean that we will never know pain or sorrow. It does not mean that in the midst of every appearance of the contrary, we will know that the living spirit is always present, empowering us to move out of the condition of pain into well-being and wholeness once more. Life is everywhere present, even in the darkest darkness. when we are surrounded by darkness, whether it be emotional, mental, or physical, we can either succumb hopelessly to it, or we can kindle that spark of life that is in the midst of it and start a blaze that will light our way out of it. We may live under the shadow of darkness. We may live in a world where chaos is so apparent, and we see that every day. We may find great areas of opposition. This seems to be the case every time we turn on the television and hear the news or read a paper or a magazine, but all of this negation cannot stop us if in consciousness we dwell on the light. We must prepare to live. There must be a great curiosity within us and an interest that will not give up. We must be aware of the truth. We must be aware of it. We won't be aware of it if we don't go within. We must seek the silence of our mind. Go within or go without. I go within or go without. Make up our mind. We must make up our mind. We must take the time to do it. This is a preparation for life, to live life more fully and completely. We must have a curiosity about life, a wonder about life, enthusiasm for life. Life is a beautiful and challenging experience. It is up to us whether we see beauty or dwell upon ugliness. It is up to us whether we accept the challenge to grow and unfold more of the potential within us, or choose to look upon every challenge as a barrier that would deliberately obstruct us. In the process of learning and growing, we may fall down many times, but we have the power to bounce back if we will just use it. Yes, within you and me is a pearl of great price, which makes us a dynamic individual expression, capable of life, of accomplishing whatever we set out to do. When any dark spot appears in our life, remember the words of the 139th Psalm. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness will cover me, even the night shall be a light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. And that's what we must believe within ourselves. That it's all alike. One is not more difficult or challenging than the other. We just accept whatever life is. What is life to us? What is the experience we're having that challenges us to believe in ourselves? What is it that we've heard or believed about ourselves that makes us feel like we don't have what it takes to live our life in control of the things that happen to us? Everybody is here. Everybody is here on this plane of expression on planet Earth to play out the game of life. Some of us play a winning game, and some of us play a losing game. This does not mean that we are governed by fate. It means that each of us creates our own fate at the level of our own understanding. Each of us is where we are because of how we use our freedom of choice. If we would not simply drift through life, we must not allow ourselves to be tossed to and fro as the ocean tosses its debris to and fro until it throws it upon the shore. We do not have to drift or be tossed about like debris. There is something within us that says, I can. Why don't you say that right now where you are? I can. Let's say it out loud. I can. I'm reminded of Dr. Peel's book. I can if I think I can. I can if I think I can. The moment we say I can, something begins to change. The moment we realize I can, it is followed up with I will. Why don't we say that silently to ourselves right now? I can and I will. I will begin to allow things to happen in my life for the better. I will begin to realize the ability within me. I know I can change my life for the better, and I will begin it right